So thank you all as always for sitting in and listening to my little rants and raves. But when I say to you that this next piece of gear that I absolutely dig, called the Freedom Lantern, that it saved my life. By life, I mean marriage. And by marriage, right, if you're married, you laugh, but right, it kind of saved my marriage. Here's what happened. So when you have 5 kids, it redefines date night. So since I was with you all last, my wife and I decided we were going to have a date night. So she, in case she ever sees this in her omniscience, right, brilliant idea, decides that date night would be painting of one of the kids' rooms. She wanted our daughter's room, our youngest daughter was going to be painted. She had a purple paint, spent all day at Home Depot. So I go, oh, great, it's date night, right? Fantastic.
Quality
Where are we going?
together.
She goes, we're going upstairs. And I go, for what? She goes, we're going to paint the room.
Yeah.
I got throw rugs, I got sticks, I got rollers, I got pans, I got all this. We no sooner sign off on, all right, and just like having dinner delivered in and there's some
nice.
champagne. So we're gonna make an evening out of it,
Yeah,
right? So I'm
yeah.
thinking, oh, champagne, I'll paint.
Right.
I'm good with that. No sooner do we agree in tandem to do it, power goes out.
Oh no.
My first thought was, oh, someone's watching out for me, right? Now I get a real date night, I don't have to paint. And then my wife goes, no, you're not getting out of it this season, the power come back on in a minute. I go, well, it could be prolonged, this power outage, you never know.
Never
So
know.
we should just head to a restaurant. So she said, no, I really want to get this painting done, and it's supposed to rain over the weekend. So I said, well, I do have a couple things that we could try, and that's why I say the Freedom Lantern saved my life and my marriage, because I have 2 of them, right? We charged them with the USB, and I wasn't gonna win a Rembrandt award, but using that and another light that I'm gonna show you here in a little bit allowed us to get to the point where we could paint, and we had to move it in different sections of the wall,
Right.
but I could at least see that it was purple. I could see to run the tape, right? Because you want the
Oh,
purple
yeah.
blend into the white. So that's why I say that the Freedom Lantern really saved my life, and at least my date night that night. So then it made me think,
Yeah.
for other folks, what kind of emergency situation, right? Like a wife
Yeah.
that wants to paint and you're
Sure.
trying to get out of it.
Yeah.
What other type of life-threatening emergency situations could you imagine where the ability to have a light could make all the difference in the world? And there's
Sure.
no weight to it, feel that,
Sure. Yeah.
right? You don't have to worry about fuel.
Yeah.
You know, it breaks my heart every time you see these stories in the news where people lit a candle or they
Right.
kicked over a
Yeah.
lantern.
Right.
I mean, we live just outside of Chicago. Didn't Elsie's cow, somebody help me with the story,
Oh.
didn't she
Yeah.
kick over a
Right.
lantern and that's what,
Yeah.
guys
That's
like,
what-
throwing the barn on fire and then, 90% of the city burned down, whatever it was. Well, here's one you don't have to worry about,
Right.
propane. You don't have to have fuel in a lantern.
Yeah.
And if you can you plug it into the USB, like
That's
some
it.
of our other light bulbs and other things, then it's charged up.
That's what I was just gonna ask, is that you don't even have to change batteries, you can just plug it in to charge it
Isn't that
with
amazing?
the USB.
How long does it take to charge?
Oh, I started charging right away. When I plugged it in, there was just enough. Here's the thing about them. I always leave them charging so that if I
Okay.
ever need them,
Yeah.
I absolutely know. So if you said, oh, from stop to start, how long would it take? I've always left it charging so that in an emergency
Okay.
situation I would know to get
Sure.
it. But I would say 20 minutes to 30 minutes to fully charge a battery. But you never want to address your gear once you're in the emergency situation.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
like, even solar, even if I have solar generators, my solar generators, everything else, they're plugged in.
Right.
Because I'm going to freeload off the electric company. I'm going to use the USB to make sure all my stuff is charged
Yeah.
because an emergency situation, right? Kind of like,
Makes sense.
if you think a storm's coming, that's why you fill the bathtub full of water.
Yeah.
Right? Because if the power gets knocked out, the pump doesn't work, you can at least drink. So I always like to keep all my gear charged, or my first aid kits filled and up to date, my prescriptions filled and up to date, because in an emergency situation, that's not the time to say, oh, let me run to Walgreens and make sure my medications, my scripts are right up.
Right.
Let me make sure my gear is all charged.
Yeah.
So I would just leave it plugged in.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about this is any place that allows a USB charger, like I have a little box, the little boxes that you
Sure.
plug in, but you could charge this off, like the briefcase backup is another great way, you have those USB ports, you could charge it off of that,
Yeah.
and in an emergency situation, you can have your briefcase backup, plug this thing in, and it'll run indefinitely, right? Because if it's
Yeah.
plugged in, it will continue to go.
A lot of houses have, 10 of these types of cords in their house.
You know what?
So there's always a way to charge it up.
And again, keeping with happy life, happy wife, right? Happy wife, happy life. You should see, because this morning I pulled in, and just how bad can you really be pulling up in a minivan? Right? Everyone else is in the parking lot in trucks, and I pull up in a minivan. But minivans now come with these things, so you could even charge it. Right, if you needed to, you're stuck alongside of the road, you're fumbling through your purse looking for whatever, you could charge this right in a minivan.
Well, and not only that, I was just thinking while you were talking about the minivan, because they do have this, and because this is dimmable,
Yeah.
if you're on an overnight trip with the kids and they want to read a book or something like that, you could just have this very dim in the back
Good
seat,
point.
so it doesn't distract the
Good
driver,
point.
but it's
Good
something
point.
to keep
Because it's
them
tough, as you know,
occupied.
about distracting a driver. If they put that night light on in the
Exactly.
back, and you're trying to look through,
Yeah.
right? And you can't see headlights if you're looking through that back, so that's a very...
Yeah, that's
a
the
very
weakness of a
valid
lot
point.
of emergency lights is that they're really strong. They're all, and there's no dim switch on it. But this one, that's a good dim switch.
And like I said, it was enough to paint, right? We had to move it every few feet, but it was enough for us to still have fun,
Yeah.
and we weren't in the dark, and an hour later the power came back on. But it made me think of all the other emergency situations. Like I can hear my wife going, having to spend the night with me is an emergency situation. But you know what I'm saying? All the other emergency situations that you may have, and it doesn't require fuel, so you don't have to worry about your cows kicking it over. Your kids, cows, kids.
Yeah,
Tomato, tomato.
Now, will it hold a charge? Like you said, can you charge it and then a month later when you need it, will it still be charged?
Here's the only thing. Yes, but I never trust a battery to hold a charge that long, right? Because it's like the old days when you run and you get your flashlight out.
Mhm.
Well, you put batteries in a month ago,
Yeah.
and then there's stuff is caked all over them, or the power's not. I never, in an emergency situation, I never like to chance it. So, like when you change the batteries in the smoke detectors, each week I have one main flashlight that we always use. Each week I rotate those batteries out into another flashlight, so that I know they're at least going to be fresh. And one of the other flashlights that I have is charged from the briefcase backup.
Okay.
It charges in the cigarette lighter. I drop it in a little holder so I know that that's always charged. But any battery will lose its charge over time, so I like to keep it. Just like here's another thing. I said this on Good Morning America. People go, "What's the number one tip if you're going to drive across the country? What's the number one survival tip?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Never let your car get below half a tank." And people are like, "Well, why?"
Yeah.
Well, sometimes there's signs saying next fuel depot, mostly out west,
Right.
next fuel 100, 150, 200 miles. But just because you are going to go on a road trip doesn't mean you're always going to be able to find fuel. Suppose you pull up. I've been at pumps before that don't accept credit cards.
Oh.
And if you don't have any cash, you're out west, you don't accept pumps, or power's out, not accept a credit card. Oh, don't worry, the credit card will be good. Copy down my number, you can run it tomorrow.
No.
We're not going to give you a full tank of gas.
No.
So the number one survival tip of being in a vehicle, especially, like my wife says all the time, whenever the kids are in the car, you drive like a grandparent. Right? Because it's just, I got some pretty valuable cargo. But the other thing is, I always make sure that I have at least a half a tank of gas. And in some older cars in the wintertime, your fuel lines will freeze.
Oh.
Or you get all that gunk. You don't know where, if you travel a lot, always getting gas. You don't know what they blend it with.
Yeah.
So I like to keep, to your point of keeping the batteries topped off, I like to keep gas in it as well. And then remembering too that if you ever broke down alongside the road, you always want to crack the rear windows, because if you leave the engine running and there's any puncture along the exhaust system,
Oh. Yeah.
you never wake up,
Yeah.
right? Carbon dioxide goes night, and you nod right off. So I always like to leave the back windows cracked by about an inch, even though it's a heavier gas. If you're going to leave your engine run, I can remember back in the day when I was a patrolman in New York, 2 troopers died because they backed their patrol car into to be able to run radar. They backed it into a snowbank, and the snow covered the muffler.
Oh my.
And they just went, "Oh man, what's wrong?"
Wow.
10-7, which means out of service. Sorry, they were gone.
I was-
So we did remember that too. Always keep your gas at more than half a tank. And if you're going to be stuck alongside the road and you're running the engine from warmth, always keep the windows cracked. I like it in the back just because you never can tell through your exhaust system. Even if you've taken a small little puncture, that gas can seep up through the car, and you don't want to.
Right.
You just don't want to mess with that.
Right. When you were painting with this, did this ever get hot? I mean, does it warm up so that it's?
No, I wasn't able to make s'mores. That would have been cool, right? Just
Yeah.
make a s'more. But no, I didn't. Well,
So,
let me
like,
say this:
your
I was
kids
never
could-
worried about it.
Yeah, that's
right?
a big deal.
Yeah, so I mean, like kids could run in
Yeah.
there, and it's never
Yeah,
gonna.
I've got an 18-month-old in my house. So that's a big deal for parents of small ones.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And then, so Hannah, try this for me. Want to see something really cool
Yeah.
about Finland? Go ahead and blow on. Like, imagine you were blowing a flame out, but just blow into it. Came on, didn't it?
It did.
Now go ahead and blow it out for me. So it really is like a candle or a lantern
Yeah.
without the risk of young pyromaniacs running around trying to burn the house down, right?
Right.
So, but I thought that was pretty cool that they even thought to make it so you can blow it on and blow it off.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if nothing else, as you say, with an 18-month-old,
Oh, yeah.
with little kids, they're constantly going, oh yeah, let me try.
Right.
That's another, I thought just a little cool aside.
Okay.
But that's the Freedom Lantern.
It's great.
Awesome.
Great piece of gear.